All right, this steady state visually evoked potential. When I mentioned something flashing out there, you would see it flashing in your brain. So here's an interface. If I put yes on one side and no on the other, let's say no is going to flash at 6 hertz, which is how fast it's flickering. And the yes will flash at 10 hertz. If I ask you, do you want, Billy, pepperoni on your pizza? What would be your response?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so Billy's going to concentrate on yes, and as he watches the yes, flashing at 10 hertz, as I monitor the area in the back of his head, I will see 10 hertz flashing and know that he intends yes. So I highlight this in this manner. I can't just put the cap on Billy and know that he's thinking pepperoni on my pizza. I need to give him an interface that he can make a selection. We're not there yet. And I say yet with a ... This P300, this aha response, about 300 milliseconds after the fact, if I showed you the murder weapon and you had actually used it and seen it, Marcia, we'll see that flash about 300 milliseconds after I show it to you. But if she didn't commit the crime, we won't see it. We can also present an array of characters in a different way and let somebody spell with that ability. So let's say we're going to spell out KSU. So everybody will focus on the K, and we're going to have this random flashing of rows and columns. When the column or the row for the K flashes, we're going to all have a response, because that's the letter we're attending to. That's the one we want. When the other letters flash, the other rows and columns, we're not going to have a response. So simulation, K, focusing on it. Enough patterns coming up, we flash. So the last one here, looking at blood flow in the brain. Well, we can measure it through infrared, and what you're seeing here is a little puck that kind of gets placed over the language area of your brain. This is probably the easiest area to monitor, where if I have you think about saying some word in your head, even counting, so forming the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're going to have blood flowing to that area of the brain. Now, if I have you just think of something nonsensical, something meditative, la, la, nothing will happen there. It's not a real word that you're forming. Show you a quick video of how that happens. And what you're going to see here is a baseline where first the person is asked to say la, la, la in their head repeatedly. Again, there's no movement involved. This is all from their thoughts. Then the line is going to dip, no blood flowing to that area. At the halfway mark, we're going to ask them to count quickly in their head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have a spike. Now, you also notice there's a slight delay because there's physically blood going to that area of the brain. It's about a 3 to 7 second delay at times. Now, we could do the opposite. We could say, let's make it a no. So we're going to make it go up and then down. So baseline is our la. As we initialize the system and then count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It might take a moment for the signal to turn around. Then halfway through, we're going to go back to la. La, la. Just kind of a droning sound. Starts to go back down. You don't have to train to do this. Our brains do this naturally. So what are the pros and cons? Well, you can see there's hands-free control. I mean, that's science fiction come to life right now. Improving the quality of life for individuals, as I mentioned, who otherwise would not have an outlet to communicate, to control the environment. They would literally be asking or waiting for you to ask them. I have an example of a patient I worked with about 7 years ago now, and went into his room, long-term care facility. He could actually still move his eyes a little bit, So to move him to the left to say yes, would hold him fixed to say no. So clearly he was in discomfort. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Do you need your head adjusted? No. Do you need your feet adjusted? No. Because think about this, the person is laying there all day long. So that's the first thing that we want to concentrate on is comfort. Well, eventually we had to lift up the sheet and fortunately notice that his feeding tube had come out. But imagine that. He had to wait for somebody to ask him that. Now imagine if he had a brain interface that he could tell someone what was going on. This last bit, I think it's going to change the way that we interact with our computers. Think about what's new right now. I mean, the internet was revolutionary at one point. Wireless was revolutionary. But what's next? And we're in the midst of social media, where again, we're seeing the human at the center of our information systems. So, take it one step further, truly interfacing humans with computers. Now, on the downside, we don't really know how well we interface with these devices. That's the core of my work, is looking at how we vary in our individual differences, and can I predict why one person would be able to use a device better than another, just based on your physiological profile. Well, that's still evolving. I mean, we've got, a camp saying, oh, this is really neat technology, let's just use it. And another camp that's saying, wait, we've really got to focus on the need and the care of the individual. Unfortunately, if we're focused on the locked-in population, the numbers are it's kind of sad. From the start of the disease and being diagnosed with ALS, we're talking about a 3 to 5 year span on average before someone passes away. So if you're looking at that situation, I mean, this technology is cool, but we've got to get better about making it useful. Now, those last bits about higher error rate and low bandwidth, again, this is a concern especially for making this technology more widely accepted and used. I mean, as with most assistive technology, if we get it so that everybody needs it and finds some useful application, costs go down and it becomes more widely available for everybody. So I think that's the driver for brain-computer interfaces. Well, we talk about error rates. Think about how fast you talk, your friends talk. 200 words per minute is where we are unaided. If you add in now an assistive device, it's only about 20 words a minute. Considerable difference. But layer on top of that a neurally controlled device, and we're really at about 10 words per minute right now. Again, big gap. But if that's your only outlet, that's pretty important. So another example, an individual out in California, long-term care situation, needed around-the-clock care. Well, turns out his nurse was sleeping on the job. Can you imagine that? You're dependent on someone else, and they're asleep. Well, it took him all day to do it, but using a brain-computer interface, he spelled out that this was the situation. And she owned up to it. I think she didn't really realize or think about him really fully being there. Right? This is different from a vegetative state. As I mentioned, these individuals are fully aware. There's just a connection that's been severed to be able to control their movements. So what are we doing upstairs on the second floor? Well, ultimately, it's looking at these pairings, this better fit of brain-computer interface technology to individuals. And so I'm looking at age, gender, do you smoke, do you drink, things that affect you physiologically, and how they impact these different techniques. So if we're talking about something related to blood flow, well, if you're an athlete, you've got that blood flowing through your veins a little bit more efficiently than some of our more sedentary counterparts. So if I put those two together, well, the person that's more active would probably be more efficient at controlling an interface based on that manner. Hopefully, we'll be able to improve the design of these applications and help individuals, but also find some neat use, especially when we're talking about business settings. We have some new terms that have come up: neuromarketing, neuroeconomics, neuro-IS. So I guess if you put neuro in front of anything. But we're using your thoughts to understand more about the field. So how well do you like that computer interface when it's been presented to you? How much do you like that brand being presented in a different media vehicle? And there's a lot that we can find out that maybe you're not able to articulate directly to us. So that's kind of the breadth of what we're doing in the lab. One, looking for those pairings between individuals and brain-computer interfaces, and what are those characteristics that help distinguish someone's literacy or ability to control that device. Looking at brand placement, pairing up with my marketing colleagues, but also looking at this link between motor control and your brain control. So if you train with the brain interface, do you improve your physical ability? We've actually seen connections there. So this ties into rehabilitation, being able to move your arm again, or improving your ability to hit the ball with the racket. With violence in video games, that's a project that we've had going on. Now, there's an individual who's playing a very violence-intense game, experience the same levels of exposure as someone who has seen combat, a police officer that's seen action, who perhaps is suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We're actually investigating if our brains are responding in a similar manner. I mean, if I told you that playing this first-person shooter game and shooting up individuals on the screen would give you PTSD, would you still do it? At least you'd be more informed about it. All right, the last bit is this levels of engagement. We've all been in a project before and had a group meeting, and maybe some people made a better effort of seeming like they were involved in the discussion than others. Well, we'd be able to actually assess that. So let's take, who are my accounting folks? If you have a situation where you're assessing fraud in a company, you have a team that needs to come in and brainstorm where that fraud is going to take place. Well, is the analyst really needed on that team? Who's really contributing and paying attention? Maybe we can assess that through a brain interface. So at this point, I'd like to take any questions that hopefully this might have sparked for you. But you can see second floor, email at brainlab@kennesaw.edu. And if you didn't know it was here before, it is here. I'd love to have volunteers and have you participate.